Len Short, LotLinx at Driving Sales. How you doing, Len?
Good, Kelly. Thanks for having me here.
Good to finally meet you. We did our podcast together, and it's good to see you in person. So why does LotLinx play a significant role in reducing the cost of aging inventory, or what we call lot rot?
So, our whole model is built around a dealer being able to identify a set of inventory that he needs to sell, either to gain more margin, to meet a manufacturer's stair step, or to clear units that are costing him floor plan cost. And so we're the only thing that allows the dealer to build a inventory specific strategy and then execute a campaign at the VIN level. So most of what happens in advertising is people choose a channel, they push money into a channel targeting consumers, and then it kind of trickles down onto the lot, and it does it very unevenly. So you can't really manage what you're getting out of a campaign on the VIN level. So and what we see a lot is most of the effect is on the VINs that are moving along just fine. Those are the click candy, the stuff that gets engaged at a higher rate. That's the stuff you don't need as much help with, and you certainly don't need to spend your advertising resources against moving that. You need to be able to strategically target the inventory that's a challenge. And that's been our sort of secret sauce, our big point of differentiation. And that's what keeps dealers very connected with our platform.
Len, tell us a little bit about your work now with OEMs. That seems to be a focus of your marketing. It's going pretty well.
Yeah, so we've grown largely without a sales force through our relationships with large dealer groups who were early adopters, some smaller dealer groups who were sort of very smart and cutting edge, and the OEMs have a lot of resources to look into new technologies, pilot them, see what they do for their business. Our primary impact is moving specific inventory, right? And that's an issue for the OEMs. They print out cars, the F-150, one every 34 and a half seconds comes in, online. And they produce them in a very steady fashion, but they don't sell through quite as evenly, right? So you see fluctuations in sales up and down, but you see huge swings in days supply. And when you take that down to the regional or the dealer level, the swings get even more exaggerated. An OEM can't sell what he's producing unless it's clearing out of the lots ahead of him. And so we address that issue at the dealer level and at the OEM level. And what they've learned to do is use our product nationally, to address those kind of bunch ups in the supply chain. Either in conjunction with an incentive, in support of an incentive program that they have, or actually in advance of an incentive, reducing the incentive dollars that they have to spend in the marketplace. So, 10, 15 times a month, we're launching campaigns for, one VIN 10 set of, inventory in the Midwest and another one in the Southeast. And, they're using it to manage that supply chain, to their best advantage and optimize their cost, of moving that inventory. Up until now, the only real lever both a dealer and a OEM have had is price to try to move inventory. It's a very costly way of clearing inventory. OEMs are up to $4,000, on average per unit in incentive spending. That's a big chunk of gross margin on a unit. Dealers spend $30 billion a quarter in retail discounts to move inventory.
Lord.
And the problem is the old, price elasticity of demand doesn't work the same way as it used to. What it tends to do is shift buyers from one unit to another, not really drive incremental demand. So it's a very costly way of clearing out, what you have that's aged on your lot, and the older a piece of inventory gets, the harder it is to sell. It's just a phenomenon that every dealer knows. And when you're doing that, you're shifting the demand to those units, you're starving the fresher units that are then going to go through the same cycle. And they'll become aged, and then you're discounting those. So, smarter technology tools and the ability to micromanage demand per unit really makes a massive difference, in not only the sales rates of those units, reducing the days on lot, but in the realized margin, right? It's a lot less expensive if you use technology to find incremental buyers than it is to use dollars to find incremental buyers, right?
And sit there and absorb costs on your lot.
Yeah, and so this is one of the inefficiencies that is developed in our business. Dealers complain about compressing margins and the race to the bottom. They're looking at the guy next door, seeing what he's priced. He's looking back to see what they're priced, and they're sort of pushing themselves into a business that there's no retail margin left in. And I think what makes me most excited about this business is how technology is going to change that. So far, frankly, the internet has been a big cost center for dealers. They've had to spend a lot of money tooling up. They're spending, digital spending is up 288%, while margins are down 38%. So that can't sustain. You can't be serving it's great for the digital guys, but you can't be serving a customer base that is getting crushed on the net margins. We have to have technology find the efficiencies, and we have to get a dividend from all of this investment in technology that we've made. That's beginning to happen. I think that's going to be the story going forward. And if technology can bring every dealer another $300 a unit, that's going to change the whole dynamic of this business. And I think that's what we're going to be seeing happen over the next year or so.
What's the mechanism that LotLinx uses to establish attribution so car dealers can measure its true value?
Yeah, so attribution is the holy grail, right? All the dealer wants to know is if is this driving my sales? And it has been a tough game to look at digital metrics. Is this succeeding in terms of traffic, and then connect that to sales? So we were the first, we moved very aggressively building all of our attribution around Google Analytics. We hired some of the original people from Urchin, which was the company that Google bought to make Google Analytics. We got very smart about setting up a standardized setup so we could judge traffic, which is what feeds our system. You need to feed machine learning with stable data that allows it to then find the optimal mix. But over the past couple of years, we've expanded that to having a view into the market and what's actually selling. So everything in our system is optimized against, is this traffic having an impact on two dimensions? One, the sales pace of that unit, and that's constantly changing because of in-market demand, stocking levels, how other dealers are selling down their inventory, OEM incentives and other pricing moves that happen. It's a very dynamic marketplace, right? So we're looking at, hey, is this having an impact, adjusted for all those things in terms of the actual sales pace of the subject inventory, and then overall day supply trends, because that's really the cost driver for a dealer, is how long are you holding inventory, because there's the cost of holding the inventory, stocking it, but there's this accelerating cost of actually selling it through as inventory ages. So we're about ready so we use this in our platform, and that's how all of our targeting is done, is based on actually the sell-through rates, the impact on sales. But we're now moving that into a dealer-facing tool so they can look at digital metrics, which they're doing now, and we've helped some of the companies that are out there making a business of this get going and use some of our technology. But but the real issue is, okay, if I'm looking at my time on site, my engagement metrics, and all of that stuff that over the past couple of years, dealers have been taught to do, still can I decide that this is actually selling cars for me? And so next generation of our product, which we're releasing right now to our larger dealer customers, it'll be available to everybody at the end of this year, will put dealers in a position to draw that connection. Because one of the key issues, I'll try to illustrate this. We all know that buyers do a lot of things online. Google says 147 things over, key actions over the course of about 32 days. They're looking at 10 nameplates, right? So they're considering 10 different things. They're moving through this very erratic process. And so it's kind of like a basketball game, right? To win a basketball game, you got to score in every quarter, right? But the way they tend to go, I'm not much of a basketball fan, is, everybody, they score together and it runs up to 118 to 120, right? And then it comes down to who actually makes the last basket, who's got the momentum at the end of the game. And frankly, in digital marketing, you can, if you're just looking at engagement metrics, some of those early visits that have nothing to do with what the consumer's going to actually buy. Remember, they're looking at 10 nameplates, right? So 9 of them, they're not even going to end up buying. So some of those highly engaged visits happen in the early shopping, right? That's when you look at all the photos. That's when you spend time in the car. You know, what does a Camry look like? What are the options available? Later on, people know all that. Now they're just checking inventory, and that's the strike moment. Is when somebody knows exactly what they're going to buy, and they're looking for who's in stock and available on that. That's the moment you want to own. That's like making the last basket to win the game, right? So our system is all built around that. That move into the the very low funnel. When people move into that buy cycle, that's when we're targeting buyers. We're watching them through their process, but then targeting them when they're ready to move. When I came up in this business, it was back in the days of direct mail, and so buyers would respond to national advertising on a new product launch, and they'd say they want a brochure on the new Sebring. Problem was, when they took that action, they were driving the car within 72 hours, and you couldn't get a brochure in their hands fast enough to influence that sale. So it's always worked this way, that people move through the consideration process, they get set on what they're going to buy, and then they move very aggressively into the buy cycle, and that's when you have to target them. And so looking at your traffic, how much are you buying early? Are you scoring big in the first quarter, but then you're trailing off in the fourth quarter? We know who's going to win that game, not you, right? So you got to make sure that you're allocating your investment smartly through that process and reaching people at the transactional moment, because that's what's really driving retail sales, is that that transactional advertising.
Len Short, LotLinx. Len, you have LotLinx Turn. Explain to us how it allows the dealer to customize their approach to handling the variety of inventory issues they face on a monthly basis.
So Kelly, we're introducing right now Turn 3. It's actually Turn 4. We've done 4 versions of this.
Okay.
5 years ago, I looked at what digital marketers were using to run their Google programs and their Facebook programs. And those were platforms that were all about Google or Facebook and how to access their audience. And we set out to build a platform that would allow a dealer to manage digital and digital demand to his inventory, but it was really all about his inventory and what was, where he needed to spend his money, which inventory he needed to concentrate and deliver demand to. So that's the fundamental change that we made with Turn. So in some ways, if you're familiar with Google's ad platform, you'll see some similarities. We did that on purpose, but instead of being about a media and a media channel, it's about your inventory. And then it takes your decisions on your inventory and then executes that omnichannel across all media platforms. 15% of our traffic is Google. It's 15% is Facebook, but it's very specialized in terms of the actual targeting technology. Siri is now wanting to answer the question for me. I should do a lot of that. Anyway, early on, we developed a thing called the VIN View Optimizer, and all it really did is plot a dealer's inventory by all the online or VDP interactions it was getting. And it was, the early dealers we showed it to, they were stunned because they look at it and say, I knew it. I've never been able to see. I'm spending all this money on these channels, from the portals to Google, Facebook, all this, display advertising. And what they could see is that traffic was resolving itself to just a very small sliver of their inventory. So 5% of the units were getting 90% of all the traffic. And then what you can do with the platform is you click on those units and you see what they are. And invariably, they're click candy. They're a $14,000 F-150 with 100,000 miles on it that is going to walk off the lot whether you advertise it or not. And you look at the cost, and they've sunk $3,000 of their digital spend into delivering traffic to that, while the stuff they make money on, they need to sell, is getting nothing.
Yeah.
And so that's the big innovation here, is the ability for a dealer to say, listen, this is what I need to sell. Now, what do I need to, spend against that, to get that stuff to turn? And how do I take money, wasteful money from, the units that are going to sell themselves that I'm already succeeding with, and move that investment into the stuff that needs a little bit more help. That's how they gain efficiencies, and frankly, that's how they're managing their business better. Two of our, if a dealer comes on a LotLinx and they've heard about it in a dealer 20 and they're not quite sure what it is, I tell my people we do run two drills with them, and it shows the entire power of the platform. One is off-brand used. Most dealers need to improve their used business in general, and they're working on that, right? That's the these times require you to become better at your used business. And on off-brand, a lot of quality dealers are not taking advantage of that opportunity. They're taking good cars in trade with a lot of built-in margin, and they're wholesaling them out. So what we can do is identify those units, move them into a campaign. Dealer spends $50 a unit, holds price, because they took that car in trade with a specific right price in mind, not drop price like a lot of dealers will aggressively drop 45 days and then they blow it out to wholesale, right? Hold that price, find the buyers, and bring the in-market demand to that car. I was at the number one performing large dealer group, I shouldn't name them, but their number one performing store, which is a Porsche store. They take a lot of nice stuff in trade on Porsches, right? A lot of high quality units with lots of margin, and they dump them all out to wholesale because they don't know how to make a market for that. So the fastest way for a dealer to understand the power of VIN-specific campaigns is, give me your off-brand, off-brand used inventory, and I'll make a market for that, and that'll have a dramatic impact on your gross and your net in your store. The other is just stair-step programs. The dealer, OEM comes to you with a stair-step incentive. We could show you how you're doing on those units versus your competitive set. Whether the other dealers in your market are getting a higher share of that available incentive transaction that's out there. The OEM's out there supporting it normally with advertising. There's more buyers in the marketplace. You should seize on that opportunity. So what we'll do is take those incentive units, move them into a specific campaign. And as one dealer told me, listen, I went from selling maybe one to all but one as soon as I started to do this. This is the first time that a dealer the OEM comes to them with all of these plans to get them to sell more cars. They don't really have a button to push in terms of their digital marketing to actually support that strategy, and that's what we give them. That's what Turn's all about. It sounds complex. It's actually very intuitive and very easy to manage. Along with our digital strategists, we pair a digital strategist with every dealer. They'll actually run it for you. But a little bit of getting to know the power of the platform, it'll fundamentally change how a dealer goes to market.
Len, thanks for spending this time with us. We really appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
We'll be in touch. Take care, Len.